So let us know what is the definition of natural selection. Natural selection can be defined as a process in which heritable variations enabling better survival are enabled to reproduce and leave greater number of progenies. Okay, so the individuals who have a beneficial trait or variant, so they are selected by the natural selection. Like here, the green or light colored beetles have the beneficial variant of light or green body color, which enables them to camouflage against the light colored background of the leaf, so that they don't get easily spotted by this predator, which is chameleon here. So that beneficial variant, it doesn't stay with just these individuals of the population, but when they reproduce, it also gets passed on to the next generation. It is very important for us to understand that along with Charles Darwin, at the same time, another biologist called Alfred Wallace. So this man here is Alfred Wallace. So along with Charles Darwin, independently, Alfred Wallace also came to the conclusion that evolution takes place by the phenomena of natural selection. Okay. Now here, what is important for us to remember is the place where Alfred Wallace, came across the phenomena of natural selection. So Alfred Wallace was working in a place called Malay Archipelago. Okay. So Malay Archipelago is present day Indonesia. Okay. Whereas Charles Darwin, most of his observations, although he did all the observations along the voyage wherever HMS Beagle took him, but he has mainly, made observations in the group of islands on the west coast of South America called Galapagos Islands. So these are the places where Charles Darwin and Alfred Wallace worked. And another important thing is the publication in which, the name of the publication in which Alfred Wallace writes about the phenomena of natural selection. So his publication was, Alfred Wallace's publication's title was On the Tendencies of Varieties to Depart Indefinitely from Original Type. So in this publication of Alfred Wallace, he mentions about the phenomena of natural selection. Now the same phenomena of natural selection was written by Charles Darwin in his book, whose title was On the Origin of Species by Natural Selection. So these are the titles of publications by Charles Darwin and Alfred Wallace, where they independently came across the phenomena of natural selection. What are the demerits of Darwin's theory of evolution, or what are the demerits of Darwinism. So Darwinism had some demerits which are as follows. The first demerit is that Charles Darwin could not explain the origin of variants. So Darwin could not explain the mechanism of origin of those beneficial variants, okay, of variants in the population. So this is one of the demerits of Darwinism. Now the second drawback was he could not explain the genetic basis of inheritance of these beneficial variations. So when the individuals in a population with beneficial variation get selected by nature, the beneficial variant doesn't stay with the selected organisms themselves. Instead, they are also able to pass this beneficial variant to the individuals of the next generation. So Darwin could not explain the genetic basis of inheritance of beneficial variation. So this is another drawback of Darwin's theory of evolution. The third drawback was, so according to Darwin, small variations were responsible for driving evolution. Okay, so according to Darwin, small variations and not the large ones were responsible for evolution. Now the problem with this was these small variations were not always inheritable. Okay, so which were non inheritable. So if the variations are not inheritable, then they can't be passed on to the next generation. So that is another drawback of Darwin's theory of evolution or Darwinism. Now, to explain the inheritance of traits, Darwin proposed his own theory, which is called theory of pangenesis. Now, according to this theory of pangenesis proposed by Darwin, he says that any change in any part of the body, so if the any part of the body undergoes adaptation or modification, those changes are conveyed to the gonads through particles called gemmules. So according to Darwin, gemmules from different parts of the body which have undergone modification would enter the gonads, and once they enter the gonads, they enter into these male and female gametes, which are sperm and egg, and from there they would make their way into this zygote, which would develop into a complete individual, thereby passing on the same traits from both the parents into the offspring. Now, this theory is not accepted because in the year 1900, August Weismann disproves theory of inheritance of acquired traits. Okay, by cutting the tail of mice for about 22 generations, August Weismann found that any change in a body other than gonads cannot be passed on to the next generation. So since he disproved this theory of inheritance of acquired traits, the Darwin's theory of pangenesis, which supports the theory of inheritance of acquired traits, also is disproved. Okay, so this becomes another drawback for Charles Darwin and his theory of evolution called Darwinism. Now, Charles Darwin also failed to explain why certain traits like this huge tusk in woolly mammoth is present. So, what is the benefit that traits like large tusks in animals, extinct animals like woolly mammoth, are providing to the organism? Now, to explain the origin of variants, which Charles Darwin could not explain in his theory of evolution, Darwinism, a scientist called Hugo de Vries. Now, Hugo de Vries is one of the rediscoverers of Mendel's work. So, totally three people independently rediscover Mendel's work. One among them is Hugo de Vries. Now, Hugo de Vries proposes his own theory of evolution, which is called as mutation theory. Now, Hugo de Vries was working on this plant called Oenothera lamarckiana. So, Oenothera lamarckiana is the plant on which Hugo de Vries was working. So, he gave his theory of evolution, which came to be known as mutational theory. So, through this theory, Hugo de Vries tried to answer what is the mechanism of generation of variants in a population which Darwin could not explain. Now, the main reason for Hugo de Vries to propose his theory was to explain the origin of different varieties of Oenothera when he selfed a species of Oenothera called Oenothera lamarckiana. So, Hugo de Vries, while working on this plant called Oenothera lamarckiana, he tried to self-pollinate this plant, and upon self-pollinating this plant, he did not get Oenothera lamarckiana. Instead, he got these different varieties which are shown here. So, one is Oenothera lata and the other one is Oenothera nyla. So, this is how he got all these different varieties instead of getting the same variety, which is Oenothera lamarckiana. Now, Hugo de Vries called these varieties as mutants. Okay, so these varieties were called as mutants by Hugo de Vries, and he proposed a mechanism to explain the origin of these mutants, and the mechanism is known as mutation. So, the theory itself is based on the name of the mechanism of generation of mutants, which is mutational theory of evolution. Now, these appearance of sudden appearance of a different variety of Oenothera in his population of Oenothera lamarckiana is similar to the sudden appearance of these beetles of different body colors. That is, in the previous example, I showed you how in a population of brown or dark colored beetles, all of a sudden, the light or green colored beetles originated. So, the case of Oenothera lamarckiana is similar to the appearance of variants in a population which are very necessary for the evolution. Now, Hugo de Vries called these sudden appearance of different varieties of individuals in a population as mutants. Hugo de Vries said that mutations have certain characteristics. So, he gave three important characteristics of mutations. Now, these characteristics of mutations are as follows. The first characteristic is that mutations are random and directionless. That is, you do not know what type of a mutant or variety would develop in a population, okay, and it is directionless. That is, there is no way you can predict it. It can go in any direction. So instead of getting these light colored variants or mutants in a population of dark or brown colored beetles, you could end up getting still darker individuals in a population. So that is what is meaning of directionless. That is, there is no way of predicting what type of mutant you would expect. And also the mutations are sudden. So mutations develop all of a sudden in a population, like the appearance of other varieties of Oenothera when Hugo de Vries was crossing Oenothera lamarckiana. Now, according to this theory, mutational theory of evolution by Hugo de Vries claims that sudden appearance of very large mutations in a population leads to evolution. So he called such large single step large mutations capable of bringing about speciation or evolution as saltation. Okay, so single step large mutation leading to evolution or formation of new species is called as saltation. So that is the core of mutational theory of evolution. Now, when I say mutations are directionless, I also mean that mutations can be both beneficial, can be either beneficial or harmful. So one cannot say that a mutation which is going to develop in a population would be beneficial or harmful. So there is no way of knowing it. For example, this boy here is affected by a mutation called polydactyly. Polydactyly. Now, in polydactyly, the individual will have more than 5 digits in his hands or feet. So, if you see here, there are 6 digits in his hand. Now, if at all this individual is interested in playing a ball game like cricket or volleyball, then these 6 digits will help him catch the ball more efficiently than those individuals who have just 5 fingers. So in this case, the mutation turns out to be beneficial. On the other hand, you have a disease by a mutation which is called as progeria. Now this mutation affects small kids, and it makes them look like old people. So these kids grow old very soon, and before they reach puberty they would die. So this mutation is deleterious. So the mutation that would develop in a population could be either a beneficial mutation or a harmful mutation. So it could be any one out of these two. A real life example of mutation is the sudden appearance of short-legged sheep in a farm in America. So this short-legged sheep came to be known as Ancon sheep. So farmers were very much delighted when they saw this short-legged sheep, because these short-legged sheep would not jump over the fence and go to others' farm and destroy their crops. So it is very easy to keep these sheep under captivity when compared to the previous varieties of sheep. Now, what is difference between variation and mutation? The concept of variation was proposed by Darwin in his theory of evolution called Darwinism. So the appearance of a different type of variety in a population is what is variation. Now Hugo de Vries in his mutational theory, he calls this variation by another term which is known as mutation. So the concept of variation was proposed by Darwin, whereas the concept of mutation was proposed by Hugo de Vries. Now variations according to Darwin are small and directional. So I have already told you, according to Darwin, small variations would bring about evolution. So the variations were small and they were directional. That is, one can predict in what direction or what type of a variant would develop in a population. So he believed that variants which would develop in a population are always beneficial to them. Whereas according to Hugo de Vries, the mutation, which is another name for variation according to Hugo de Vries, so that is random and directionless. So you cannot predict whether the mutation which is going to develop in the population is going to be either beneficial or harmful. And when I say it is directionless, I mean that it can go in any direction. That is, you cannot predict it whether it is going to be useful or harmful to the organism. Now, variations according to Darwin, they bring about gradual evolution, because Darwin is insisting that small variations are responsible for evolution. Therefore, these small variations have to accumulate in the organism, which would take a longer time to make it look different from the individuals, rest of the individuals of the population, thereby, bringing about evolution. So thereby it makes evolution a gradual process. Whereas mutations, according to Hugo de Vries, since they appear all of a sudden, okay, and he also said that only large mutations bring about evolution. So he called those single step large mutations as bringing about evolution as saltation. So according to him, because of saltation, the evolution is a rapid process. So it can occur overnight, whereas according to Darwin, due to variations, evolution is a very, very slow and gradual process which takes millions of years. Now the fourth difference is variations, they do not cause speciation. So speciation is the process of formation of new species. So according to Darwin, variation doesn't cause speciation, whereas the mutations, according to Hugo de Vries, they can cause speciation. And I have already told you about saltation. So single step large mutations leading to speciation. That process is called as saltation. So these are the differences between variation and mutation. Now, what are the demerits or drawbacks of mutational theory proposed by Hugo de Vries? The first demerit of mutational theory of Hugo de Vries is that the very plant in which he observed sudden appearance of new types of Oenothera plant. Okay, so that is in Oenothera lamarckiana. So this plant itself is a very unstable plant. So today we know that this plant has many chromosomal aberrations. Okay, so there are defects in the number and structure of chromosomes in Oenothera lamarckiana. So today we know that it is because of this that Hugo de Vries observed different varieties of Oenothera when he selfed Oenothera lamarckiana, which is what is the reason for appearance of those different varieties, what he called as mutants. So the appearance of mutants is a real phenomena, but why they appeared in Oenothera lamarckiana is because of the chromosomal aberrations. And also mutations do not occur frequently in nature. So in case of Hugo de Vries, he observed many varieties of Oenothera. So these varieties which he called mutants, they don't actually appear so frequently in nature. So mutations are rare and do not appear frequently as observed by Hugo de Vries. So this becomes another drawback for mutational theory. The third drawback is mutational theory cannot explain phenomena like coevolution. Now, coevolution is a parallel evolution going on between two individuals. So, a best example of coevolution is coevolution of a flower and its insect pollinator. Okay, so we have many entomophilous flowers in nature which are pollinated by insects. So the flower and insect have to evolve, parallelly, so that the insect can bring about pollination of the flower and take its reward, which is nectar, and at the same time the flower also is pollinated. So how do these mutations occur together? How do they know that what mutation should occur between the flower and its pollinators so as to keep them compatible, such that the insect can bring about the pollination of the flower? So such coevolutions cannot be explained by mutational theory. The fourth drawback or demerit is that there is no role of natural selection in Hugo de Vries' mutational theory of evolution. Okay, so there is absolutely no role of natural selection. He says that mutations themselves appear, they appear frequently, and they bring about evolution. So he does not credit uh, anything to natural selection. So that becomes another drawback for mutational theory of evolution. Now coming to what are the mechanisms of evolution. So having studied about the four theories, the different theories of evolution so far, which is Lamarckism, Darwinism, and Hugo de Vries' mutational theory, let us come to the mechanisms of evolution. So there are various, mechanisms which bring about evolution. So here are the couple of mechanisms. The first mechanism is natural selection, about which I have told you. So in natural selection, only beneficial variants are selected by nature. So for example, you see these beetles here. So among these population of beetles, these green colored beetles are having the beneficial variation. So that is the green body color which is matching with the green leaf. So that enables them to camouflage against this green background and escape this predator. Thereby, they survive. And when they survive, they get an opportunity to reproduce, which Darwin called as reproductive fitness. And by reproducing, they pass on this beneficial variant, which is green body color, also to their progeny. So this mechanism of evolution is natural selection. Now coming to this second mechanism of evolution, which is called genetic drift. Now genetic drift was proposed by this scientist here who is called Sewall Wright. So Sewall Wright proposed this mechanism called genetic drift. Now how to define what is genetic drift? So genetic drift can be defined as sudden change in allele frequency in a small population. Sudden change in allele frequency of a small population. So this is the definition of genetic drift. Now genetic drift is also known as Sewall-Wright effect, since it was discovered by Sewall-Wright. Now what is allele frequency? So about allele frequency, I would teach you in Hardy-Weinberg's law. So when we take up Hardy-Weinberg's law, there I'll tell you what are allele frequencies. So for time being, you just have to assume that allele frequency is nothing but the number of times or the number of times a particular allele is present in a population. Okay, so the number of alleles of a particular type which are present in a population is called allele frequency. Now in terms of allele frequencies, evolution can be defined as, so evolution in terms of allele frequency is nothing but change in allele frequency. So we can say if the allele frequency of a population changes, then there is evolution. So this is how we study evolution in terms of change in allele frequencies. Now this genetic drift is of two types. There are two types of genetic drifts. So let us see what are the two types of genetic drifts. The first one is called as bottleneck effect. And the second type of genetic drift is called founder effect. Okay, so these are the two types of genetic drifts. Now let us see what are these two types of genetic drifts. So what is bottleneck and what is founder effect? So this is bottleneck effect. So in this example here, you can see this is the parent population of beetles. So in this parent population of beetles, you have both green beetles and also brown beetles. So both type of beetles are in equal proportion in this parent population or original population. Now imagine these beetles are crossing a road or something like that, and a man accidentally steps on this group of beetles which is crossing the road. Okay, so there is an accident now, or it can be any natural calamity. Okay, so accident or natural calamity. Now assume in this natural calamity or accident, most of the green beetles they got crushed. So now this becomes the final population. So this is population after calamity. Now the number of individuals in this final population are different from those which were present in the parent population. So in the final population after natural calamity, you can see that there are more number of individuals of only one type of beetle. So now you have more number of brown beetles and very less number of green beetles. Okay, and let us say the green body color is due to alleles, dominant allele G. So these green beetles are capital G, capital G. Okay, so brown body color, let us say this is due to the recessive allele small g. So brown body color is due to small g. So now since in the final population there are more brown colored beetles, so you can say that the allele frequency of small g has increased. Okay, so in final population allele frequency of small g increased because now you have more number of brown colored individuals in the final population after this accident or natural calamity. Okay, and at the same time the allele frequency of capital G. So capital G is responsible for green body color. So the allele frequency of capital G has decreased. Okay. Now if you come to the original population, this population before natural calamity or accident, so here almost the green and brown beetles were almost in equal proportion. So thereby in the original population we can say allele frequency of capital G was almost equal to, I'm not saying it is exactly equal, it is almost equal to allele frequency of small g. So that was the allele frequencies of small g, capital G and small g in the parent population, and in the final population the allele frequency of small g has increased whereas the allele frequency of capital G has decreased. And like I said you, evolution in terms of allele frequencies, it is nothing but change in allele frequency. Since the allele frequencies have changed here in the final population, you can say that the beetles have evolved. So a layman would find that these green beetles over a period of time have evolved into brown beetles. So this is bottleneck effect. So bottleneck effect is nothing but, So the definition of bottleneck effect is like this. So this is sudden decrease in size of a population due to natural calamity or accident. Okay, so this is how we define bottleneck effect. Now I'll show you another diagram here. Okay, so this will help you understand why the name bottleneck effect. So let us take a bottle here with two types of beads. So one is blue colored bead, okay, and in the same bottle we can see beads of yellow color as well. Now these two types of beads are almost equal in this bottle here. So let us consider the beads in this bottle as a parent population. Okay. Now let us invert this bead and take some of the beads from this bottle in this beaker. Let us take it randomly. So let us not select these beads. Okay. Let us spill out some of the beads from this bottle into this beaker by inverting it. Now remember, this bottle has a narrow neck here. So because of this narrow neck, not all beads can make it into the beaker. Okay, so there is, because of the narrow neck, so that is why we call this as a bottleneck. Okay, so only few beads will be able to make it into the beaker. Now whatever few beads make it into the beaker, so these beads are coming into the beaker randomly. So we don't have any control over whether the blue beads are coming into the beaker or yellow beads are coming into the beaker. So like this, after few attempts, let us collect the beads and put it in another bottle. Okay, so you will be surprised to find that out of few beads from this large bottle which we collected into this beaker and later filled the other bottle, you will find that there will be uh, one colored bead which is more in number. Okay, so this bottle into which we collected all these beads from this bigger bottle, let us call this as final population or next generation. So if you see in this final population or next generation, the blue colored beads are more, okay, when compared to yellow colored beads. Okay, now if you repeat this experiment, you might end up getting next time more yellow colored beads, and less blue colored beads. So we don't have absolutely any control over what type of beads are going to get collected in this beaker. Okay, so that can be compared with what I told you here. So the collection of beads from this bottle into this beaker, let us take it as a sudden decrease in size of the population, okay, due to natural calamity or accident. So the final population, after this natural calamity, which are these beads which represent the individuals of the next generation, so they will not be of the same number which were there in the original population. So if there are two types of varieties or two types of beads in the original population, after natural calamity, there are chances that only one type of variety will dominate the population after natural calamity. So that is why this phenomenon is known as bottleneck, because you can explain it like this with the help of a narrow necked bottle. Now the second example of genetic drift is the founder effect. Now let us see what is founder effect. So founder effect, it is nothing but, let us imagine, again take example of beetles here. So you have two types of beetles in this population. Let us call this as parent population. So from this parent population, few individuals have decided to migrate to another population, now another place. Now this could be either due to shortage of resources or any other reason. So the reason could be anything. From the parent population, few individuals decide to migrate to new location. Now what type of individuals will be more in the new population? So now let us call this as new population. So if you see here, in new population there are more number of green colored beetles. Okay, whereas in the parent population there were almost equal number of green and brown colored beetles. In the new population which migrated, here you will find more number of green colored beetles. Now how can you explain why there are more number of green colored beetles in the new population, although this new population is formed from the parent population in which there were even brown colored beetles, whereas in the new population you see only green colored beetles. So that can be explained due to the fact that the the members of the parent population which migrated to this new place. Okay, so these are called as the founder population. So since in founder population, if you see here, there are more number of individuals with green body color. So since in founder population there are more green colored beetles, we can say that in the new population which is founded by the founder population, there are more number of green colored beetles. So what type of variants or variation the members of founder populations will have? So only those type of variants or variations will be found more in the final population. So the members of the original population who find this new population are called as founder population. So this is another example for genetic drift. Now whether genetic drift is taking place due to bottleneck effect or founder effect, it always requires the population to be very small. Let us take a real life example of founder effect. So it is found that in red Indians, so red Indians have O positive blood group. So 100%. So red Indians will always have O positive blood group. Now why they don't show any other blood groups? So that is can be explained by this founder effect. So whatever red Indians are present today, so whoever found the present day red Indians, the founder population, so it is believed that the few members of the founder population who founded the present day red Indians, all of them by chance had only O positive blood group. So because of that, the present day new population of red Indians, all of them also have O positive blood group. So that is a real example of founder effect. Now let us look at what are the differences between natural selection and genetic drift. So natural selection is a concept which was proposed by Charles Darwin. Okay, so genetic drift was proposed by Sewall Wright, and it is also known as the Sewall Wright effect. I've told you natural selection takes place only in large population, whereas for genetic drift you need small population. Okay, so genetic drift, whether it is bottleneck effect or founder effect, it always works in small population. Now natural selection is a purposeful event. Now why are we calling it purposeful? Because natural selection at the end it selects only beneficial variants. Okay, so like in case of the beetle and chameleon, only light colored beetles got selected because they were they had beneficial variant which is light body color, because of which they were able to camouflage. Whereas according to genetic drift, since genetic drift is accidental, I have told you, whether it is the founder effect or bottleneck effect, it is always accidental and chance event. So because it is accidental and chance event, any type of variant or variation can get selected here. Okay, so that is why we call it as random and chance event. Now, natural selection, is gradual because evolution by natural selection is gradual. That is because the mechanism natural selection itself is very slow. Whereas genetic drift, since it is because of natural calamity or accident like landslide or like that man who stamped on the beetles while the beetles were crossing the road. It happens all of a sudden. Okay, accidents they take place all of a sudden. Okay, so that is why genetic drift is a rapid process. The next difference is in natural selection, allele frequencies change by differential reproduction. I've told you here. So the change in allele frequency is due to differential reproduction. So only those individuals who have reproductive fitness or beneficial variant, they get a chance to reproduce. So when they reproduce more, only their alleles will increase in number. So the allele change in allele frequency is because of differential reproduction. Whereas in genetic drift, the change in allele frequency is a chance event. Okay, so allele frequencies can change. Either dominant allele frequency can increase or decrease, or recessive allele frequency can increase or decrease. So you cannot predict here. The next difference is in natural selection, the variants increase. I've told you already in case of industrial melanism, at the end of natural selection, both types of moths are found in nature, both light colored moths as well as dark colored moths. Both type of moths remain in nature. So none of the variant is completely eliminated. Whereas if it is genetic drift, then you can see complete elimination of one of the variants. So which you can see here in this example of founder effect. Okay, so to begin with, the parent population had both type of beetles, whereas in the final population, you see only green colored beetles. So one of the variety, which is brown colored beetles, have completely disappeared. So varieties are completely eliminated in genetic drift, whereas in case of natural selections, varieties are, they are given uh, uh, advantage to reproduce more, but finally both the varieties remain in the population. Now coming to the third mechanism of evolution, which is evolution by anthropogenic action. Now, anthropo refers to man. Okay, so evolution due to man's action is called anthropogenic action. So here I am going to give you few examples for evolution due to anthropogenic action or due to man's action. The first example is evolution of DDT resistant mosquito. Okay, so nowadays the insecticide DDT is not killing the mosquitoes. Okay, so DDT has become ineffective against mosquitoes. So that is due to evolution of a new variety of mosquito which doesn't get affected by DDT. So since if humans had not indiscriminately used DDT, this variety of mosquito today would have not become more common. It would have remained in the nature, but it is because of use of DDT that all the DDT susceptible mosquitoes have died, and now we have only DDT resistant mosquitoes. So this evolution of DDT resistant mosquito is due to man's action, which is due to man's indiscriminate use of DDT. The second example is evolution of antibiotic resistant bacteria. Okay, so antibiotics are substances produced by microorganisms which inhibit the growth or kill other microorganisms. So those are called antibiotics. Now nowadays, if you go to a doctor for any bacterial infection, he would prescribe you an antibiotic and ask you to visit him again if the antibiotic doesn't work. Now, why are doctors so suspicious about antibiotics, whether they would work or not work? So that is because the indiscriminate use of antibiotics like DDT, okay, has led to development or evolution of antibiotic resistant bacteria. Okay, so due to our indiscriminate use, since we have used antibiotics in very often, even if it is not required, we are taking antibiotics as precaution not to fall ill, okay, or to prevent infection. What has happened is the antibiotics has now killed all the susceptible bacteria in our body, in our system. Okay, so now whatever bacteria are affecting us or infecting us, they are the ones which are resistant to this commonly used antibiotics. Okay, so this evolution of antibiotic resistant bacteria is due to man's indiscriminate use of antibiotics. So we are using antibiotics in our soaps, hand washes, uh, sanitizers, okay, etc. So because of that, we have only made this evolution of antibiotic resistant bacteria faster. So it was there, the variety was already there in the nature. So it is because of our action, man's action, that the antibiotic resistant bacteria has evolved so quickly in the nature. So these are the two examples for evolution by anthropogenic action. Now this is an experiment called replica plating experiment. This replica plating experiment was performed by a scientist called Joshua Lederberg. Okay, right. Now, what does this experiment tell us, which was performed by Joshua Lederberg? So, this experiment tells us that the beneficial variants are pre-existing in the population. Okay, so whatever beneficial variants we see uh, getting selected by natural selection, they are already present in the population, okay, waiting for a chance to get selected by nature. So they are pre-existing. That is what the experiment tells us. Now let us see what was done by Joshua Lederberg in his experiment. So this experiment makes use of colonies of bacteria. So this is an agar plate in which all these dots are colonies of bacteria. So Joshua Lederberg took one such agar plate with the colonies of bacteria, and then he took a velvet cloth. So this is velvet cloth. Okay, so he tied this velvet cloth around a wooden stand like this, and then he collected all the colonies from this agar plate on this velvet cloth. So all he had to do was press this velvet cloth against the agar plate. So when you press this velvet cloth against this agar plate, all the colonies of bacteria which are there in the agar plate would get transferred to this velvet cloth like this here. Okay, and then Joshua Lederberg took two agar plates. Okay, so this is master plate, and then after copying all the colonies, after transferring all the colonies from the master plate onto the velvet cloth, Joshua Lederberg presses this velvet cloth on two empty media plates. Okay, so he calls them as a replica. So why is he calling them replica? Because when he presses this agar, when he presses this velvet cloth with colonies on this these two agar plates, it would place the colonies at same position on the agar plate as that of the master plate. So the position of colonies on the agar plate will be in same uh, location as that in the master plate. So it is creating a Xerox of all the colonies which are there in the master plate. So he calls these plates as replica plates. Now these two replica plates, let me name them as replica plate A and replica plate B. Okay, so to prevent confusion, I'll call this plate as replica plate A and this plate as replica plate B. Now Joshua Lederberg adds antibiotic into the replica plate B. So he has added antibiotic in replica plate B, whereas in replica plate A he does not add any. So this is without antibiotic. Okay, so there is no antibiotic in replica plate A, whereas there is antibiotic in replica plate B. And then he presses this velvet cloth on both these agar plates. So when he presses the velvet cloth on these agar plates, the cells, okay, which are adhered to this velvet cloth will get transferred onto these two agar plates. Okay, so all these cells will come on both agar plate A as well as agar plate B. Okay, now Joshua Lederberg allows these agar plates, the bacterial colonies on these agar plates to grow. So he finds that, on the agar plate A, on the replica plate A, all the bacterial colonies which are there in the master plate have grown. Okay, so you see here, so there are two white colonies on the master plate. So here also there are two white colonies, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dark colored colonies. So on this replica plate A also there are 5 dark colonies and 1 white colony. So all the 8 colonies which are there in the master plate have grown in the replica plate A. Whereas, in the replica plate B, where there was antibiotic, only 3 colonies have grown out of 8. So why only 3 colonies have grown out of 8? What happened to the remaining 5 colonies? So total there were 8 colonies, okay, in the master plate. So here there are in the replica plate B, there are only 3 colonies. Okay, so what happened to the other 5 colonies? The other 5 colonies could not grow here in the selective medium. Selective medium is agar medium plus antibiotic. Okay, so the antibiotic has killed the cells of the other 5 colonies. So why the other 5 colonies could not grow here is because, so those 5 colonies are the dark colored colonies which are shown in the master plate as well as in the replica plate B. So the dark colored colonies were susceptible to antibiotic, so they could not grow in replica plate B. Then why did these white colored colonies, 3 white colored colonies out of total 8 colonies, grew in replica plate B? So that is because the 3 white colored colonies are resistant to this particular antibiotic. Okay, and by doing this experiment, Joshua Lederberg proves that the 3 resistant colonies which we can see in replica plate B were already pre-existing in the master plate. So that is why they have used 2 different colors for the colonies. Okay, so here black colonies are susceptible to antibiotic, whereas white colonies are not susceptible to antibiotic. Okay, to differentiate between these 2 colonies, they have used 2 different colors for the colonies. So these white colored colonies which you see here in these positions, in these locations of the Petri plate, they are also there in the same location in the master plate also. So that means the beneficial variant, which is antibiotic resistance here in this experiment, was already there in the individuals of this population of bacteria, in this colony of bacteria. So it was just a matter of time for these colonies, the antibiotic resistant colonies, to get selected by nature. So since we applied this particular antibiotic, these bacterial colonies, they got a chance to survive and reproduce, whereas the black colored colonies which are susceptible to antibiotic could not grow here. So this experiment clearly tells us that the beneficial variants they pre-exist in the population. So the application of antibiotic did not create these beneficial variant, which is antibiotic resistance. Okay, so it is the antibiotic has not produced any antibiotic resistant variants. The antibiotic resistance variant were already there in the colony of bacteria in the master plate, so they got only selected here. So the beneficial variants pre-exist in the population. So that is what the experiment tells us. And also, since bacteria divide by binary fission, so please remember, bacteria multiply by binary fission, and binary fission is a asexual mode of reproduction. So in asexual mode of reproduction, clones are formed. Okay, so why all the cells in these colonies are of same type? That is, all the cells in white colonies are antibiotic resistant cells, and all the cells in these black colored colonies are antibiotic susceptible cells. Now, why all the cells are of particular variant in white and black colored colonies? Because bacteria multiply by binary fission. Binary fission is a type of asexual reproduction, and in asexual reproduction the individuals formed are called as clones. So clones are genetically identical. So because all the cells in the colony are clones, they also share the same trait. That is, in black colony all the cells are antibiotic susceptible cells, and in white colored colonies all the cells are antibiotic resistant cells. Now coming to the final theory of evolution, this fourth theory of evolution is called Neo-Darwinism. So neo means new. Okay, so this is called New Darwinism or Neo-Darwinism. Now let us see what is Neo-Darwinism. In Neo-Darwinism, the demerits of Darwinism, the drawbacks of Darwinism are covered here. Okay, so they are satisfactorily explained. So the core of Neo-Darwinism is Darwinism itself, which was proposed by Charles Darwin, according to whom there are two key aspects of Darwinism. One is branching descent, and the other one is natural selection. Okay, but the main drawback of Darwinism was that he could not explain the origin of the variants and the genetic basis for inheritance of these beneficial variants in the selected individuals. So those drawbacks of Darwinism were covered by concepts of Mendelism and also mutational theory of evolution proposed by Hugo de Vries. So by combining concepts of all these different theories and laws of Mendel, they proposed an alternate version of Darwinism. That alternate version of Darwinism is what is called as Neo-Darwinism. So that Neo-Darwinism takes care of all the drawbacks which were there in Charles Darwin, and it making use of Mendel's laws of inheritance. It explains why variants appear in a population and how these beneficial variants, when get selected by nature, are passed on to the progeny by the selected individuals. So this is called Neo-Darwinism. Then this is the most acceptable theory of evolution currently. Okay, so the most acceptable theory of evolution is Neo-Darwinism.